Hi, all. We'll get started in just a minute.
Hello, how you doing?
Hello. All right, folks. I think it's time for us to go ahead and get started. My name's Lisa Hanselman. I'm the director of the Mountaineer Parents Club here at West Virginia University, and we are very happy to be able to bring you this amazing webinar this evening. So for tonight, what we're going to do is just make sure you know who you're talking to. We'll have a presentation from housing, and then at the end, we will take questions. So if you can just hold your questions till the presentation's done, that'd be great. We'll take those in the chat, but just hold off because we might just go ahead and answer that question in the presentation. So as I said, I'm Lisa Hanselman, the director of the Parents Club, and if you have not yet joined the Mountaineer Parents Club, please consider doing so. It's very simple, it's free to join, and you'll make sure that you stay connected the entire time you have a student here at WVU and keep getting those amazing emails from all of us. And now I'm going to turn it over to the star of our show, Eric O'Hara, the Associate Director of Housing.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be with you today. Like Lisa said, my name's Eric O'Hara. I work in the housing office, and I am going to give you a fairly brief presentation today, talk a little bit about housing options, the application process. But the big part of this presentation is the questions that you have, those things that you can't find, those answers you can't find, so that you feel comfortable navigating this process. So I'm going to go ahead and start with housing options. And we have, go ahead and thank you very much. So we have three distinct neighborhoods on campus here in Morgantown. Right now, I'm in my office. I'm in Towers, the Evansdale Residential Complex. That's actually what's pictured in this particular slide. It's kind of like a mini city. It has the largest dining facility. And just to my left, we have Lincoln Hall, also very popular. It serves our honors college on the Evansdale campus in our Evansdale neighborhood. And just beyond that, we have one of our newest residence halls, Oakland Hall, which has nearly 900 beds. So it's also a very large complex, brand new hall, like I mentioned, very, very popular. Now, if you go across campus to our downtown neighborhood, you're close to, well, the downtown campus, the student union, and all the amenities associated with that. And just around the student union, you have Borman Hall, Borman North, Borman South, you have Dadisman Hall, you have Stoniker Hall, all right next to North High Street that connects to our downtown area in Morgantown as well. Then if you go to the other side of our downtown campus, you're in what's called our Sunnyside neighborhood. Very, very popular, home of Seneca Hall, Honors Hall, where the Honors College is located, as well as Summit Hall. So also a fairly robust neighborhood. Now, all these neighborhoods have different amenities. For example, here in the Evansdale neighborhood, I'm close to the Student Recreation Center. I'm close to the Creative Arts Center, close to all those athletic venues. Downtown, as I mentioned, have all those amenities with the student union and with downtown Morgantown. But no matter where you're at in any of those three neighborhoods, you're close to the personal rapid transit system, the PRT, the little trans system that you see across campus, and you're always close to a bus stop. So the Mountain Line bus service, free to students, and gets you to all those different amenities. Believe it or not, you're going to be in all these neighborhoods at some point. You're going to be utilizing all these amenities. And ultimately, with so many family members on here today, I'm sure your commutes are farther daily when you're going to work or amenities within your own home community. So don't let the neighborhoods overwhelm you or think that I have to be in one particular spot. Everybody has a brother, sister, cousin, friend, aunt, uncle that tells you need to be in one particular neighborhood. But ultimately, all the neighborhoods have many great amenities. And in today's world, it's so easy to navigate to all those different neighborhoods and amenities within them. Also, when I talk about amenities, I should mention those things that can be very important to students. One of the big ones is bathrooms. So we have a few different types. You have the traditional residence hall bathrooms that are community bathrooms. The advantage there is that they're cleaned every day. They're large, so there's always space available there. We also have ensuite bathrooms. Most of those, but not all, are 2 double rooms connected by a bathroom, an ensuite bathroom, and those are cleaned every few weeks. Want students to take care of those as well, but you're typically sharing that with your roommate and then your suite mates on the other side of that bathroom. And then we have something kind of in between called a pod or spa style bathroom. So that is not an ensuite bathroom, and this is located in Oakland Hall, but there's a common space on the floor with sinks, and then there are individual pods within there where you can block the area where the shower and the toilet are located. Lots of different amenities, but as I mentioned, don't let it overwhelm you. Don't allow somebody else's experience to guide your experience. Ultimately, no matter where you're at, it's going to be a positive experience. I should also mention living learning communities. And I would encourage you to go on our website and take a look at all the living learning communities. You'll also get a chance to do that when you're navigating the application in the housing portal. You can click on that page and select preferences related to living learning communities. Many of them are major based, like engineering in Braxton Tower or forensics in Summit Hall. Some of them are more thematic, such as Adventure, West Virginia. So there's a lot there. I won't go through each one of those because they're on our website. But I would encourage you to get on our website, and that's really what we're talking about in the next slide. And that is do your research. There's so much information there. Go to housing.wvu.edu. Go to the living learning communities. If you're wondering about rates or later in the process, things to bring. I sometimes get lost as well, but all you need to do is go in that top right-hand corner into that search bar and type what you're looking for, and you're going to be able to find a lot of information on there. I would also encourage you to go to the individual hall websites. There's a lot of information about specific room details. In many cases, we have dimensions listed, things that are provided in the room, staff members. So do your research, go on our website, but once again, don't let it overwhelm you. And if you feel like it is, contact us and we can guide you in the right direction or answer any of those questions you might have. Timeline. One reason that we're having this presentation right now is we're getting close to what we call our self-selection process. So students started applying on December 4th. And as you complete the application, when you're on the housing portal at myhousing.wvu.edu, once you go through that process, you'll navigate right to what's called the self-selection step. You'll be able to see what's available in real time. So if you click on a particular room, say it's in Borman Hall, and there are other students assigned to that space, you'll be able to click on their profile. You can create a profile yourself, read more about that student, communicate with the student. You can move as many times as you want during the self-selection process, but as you can tell from the slide, we're almost to February 28th, just a couple weeks away. But don't worry, even if you're still deciding on whether or not you're coming to WVU, you're still navigating some of those processes, we're still going to allow you to provide your preferences in the application. We're still going to look at profiles and use the tools in the portal to try to find best fit for you. And then, of course, once we get into the manual assignments process in March, we're also going to start managing our waitlist process. So once a student has a room assignment, right now, if they go through the self-selection process, they can get added to a wait list if they can't find what they're looking for. And the same thing will happen when we go to the manual assignments process. Once the student has their assignment within a few days, they'll be able to submit a wait list request. I did want to kind of go over one of the most common questions I get is related to, well, how long am I going to be on a wait list? What are my chances? And that's a really tough question to answer. And the main reason for that, it depends. What we're going to do is we're going to start in March, but it's not a sprint. It is more of a long-term process that goes all the way into the end of new student orientation. So we're going to be managing that waitlist process all the way through the end of June. If you've already submitted a request or you're going to submit one soon, what I would encourage you to do is make sure that you're checking your WVU email account. because when we start managing this process in March, we're going to send the student an email and give them a very short time frame to respond to that email. Not because we're mean and cruel, but because we want to go to the next person. So we want to get that one. That leads to the next change, that leads to the next change, that leads to the next change, and it keeps going. So to get on that room change list or wait list, you must have an assignment. I will say limiting your conditions maximizes your chances. And what I mean by that, if you say that I want to be in Seneca Hall on the 4th floor with these particular 2 roommates in an east-facing room, that becomes a lot more difficult to manage than I want this specific roommate or I want this particular residence hall. There are some places to put notes on there, but the simpler you keep that request, the more likely it is that we're going to be able to honor that request. Now, I flew through a lot. I know sometimes there's so much information out there, whether you're looking on our websites or communicating with others via social media. Don't let this overwhelm you. We're easy to track down. Our phone number is listed there. Our email address is listed there. If you leave us a message or send us an email during normal business hours, if we miss you, we're probably going to get back to you within just a few minutes. The longest it takes to hear back from somebody is when it gets referred to somebody specific like me. But if you have any questions or if anything's frustrating you with this process, don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, so now is the good part of the presentation. We're going to go ahead and take questions. So you all can start putting questions in the chat. In the meantime, we're just going to show you that Parents Club information up there. So if you need to join the Parents Club, there's our website. It's free to join. If you need to email us about anything or you aren't sure who to talk to get your question answered, email us and we'll make sure you get to the right place. Join us on our Facebook pages, especially that official families of the class of 2029, where you can ask questions and we will answer them directly to you. And that helpline answered by our colleague is available at any point. So let's get to our first questions here. All right, Eric, for bed selection, if it says bed 1, is that bed close to the door or is bed 2 close to the window? That's our good question.
The only time a bed net designation exists is in Seneca Hall because there are private bedrooms. So if you pick a particular bedroom, that is your bedroom. That's the bedroom key you're going to get. In most cases, that 1 or 2 doesn't mean anything. Ultimately, we want you to communicate with your roommate and set that room up the way that you want to set it up together, and also realize that you may change that setup over time as you get a feel for the space. So bed 1, bed 2 doesn't mean anything in most cases unless you're in Seneca Hall because they have specific bedrooms.
Thanks. Okay, next up. My son has applied to several colleges, expecting to make a selection in April. Is that late for housing?
It's not. I mean, we're a couple thousand in right now, and lots of students have applied, but we'll still have a couple thousand more that will apply. So I don't want you to feel rushed. Of course, the earlier you apply, the more you can maximize options. But ultimately, we're going to get we're going to get applications in April, May, June, even July and August. But to maximize options, we encourage you to apply as soon as possible. Also, if you were to apply and decide that you're not attending, the deposit is partially refundable. That $225 is partially refundable, $125 of that $225. So everything from but $100 you would get back by May 1. After that deadline, it is fully forfeited.
Okay, next up, we have a couple of honors questions, so I'm going to throw them at you one by one.
Okay.
Is there room in Honors Hall for all of the honors students?
I think there is room for most. Not everybody in the Honors College goes into Honors Hall or Lincoln Hall. So there's Honors Hall and there's also Lincoln Hall. But some will choose to be in different neighborhoods, different residence halls with other roommates. So typically, if there's no other conditions and all you're asking for is honors or Lincoln, in most cases, we're able to honor that request. Either you select it yourself during self-selection, we do it manually, or we're able to honor it during that waitlist process.
Okay, so if you're in Honors College, you do not have to live in Honors Hall?
That is correct.
And next, if you're still waiting to hear from the Honors College about your application, will you still be able to live in one of the honors residence halls?
Yeah, they're going to look at your preferences. If you don't have that honors profile in there yet, obviously during the manual assignments process, they're not going to assign you to that hall. But if you get admitted later, then go back on to what's called the application status page. You should navigate there when you get back into the portal, and then you'll be able to submit a waitlist request asking for honors or Lincoln Hall.
Okay, next up, my child has a severe food allergy. Is that something that's taken into consideration when assignments are made?
I would very much encourage you to register with Student Accommodation Services. They're also going to work closely with our staff dietitian, who's amazing. So I would go on to the dining website, diningservices.wvu.edu, reach out to Leanne Scott, and she could provide some guidance there as well. With any type of accommodation, we work closely with that office. They won't share any details related to diagnosis with us, but they will recommend certain accommodations based on individual needs, and we work to resolve those quickly.
And the Parents Club will give another shout out for Leanne Scott. She's amazing, her dietitian. So no matter what issues or food interest your student has, reach out to her. Okay, next up, Eric, how many of the residence halls have rooms that would be set up for 3 or 4 boys to live together?
There's a few options. Boardman South has quads and triples. Oftentimes, there's also suites, so they're not necessarily roommates, but they may be suite mates. Seneca also has mainly 4-bedroom apartments. But there are options close by. Also, I always say this, people want to be together with those best friends from home, and that's great. We want you to if you can, but keep in mind, lots of times you can maximize your options by splitting up a little bit because you maintain those friendships, but you also expand other friendships. So you'll be able to bring multiple groups together. And I also will say sometimes best friends from home can be the most challenging when it comes to roommates. Not always, but it can happen because sometimes they're not prepared to have those tough discussions when they start living together on a full-time basis.
All right, next question. When selecting a double room that already has someone in it, can that person reject a roommate?
Absolutely and completely not. Admittedly, this is one of my biggest pet peeves. We do have a first come, first served process. And as you see, there are many people on this particular presentation right now. Imagine if your child got in there, they're all excited, they navigate the process, they follow all the rules, they find a spot, they get in it, and the first contact they have is, hey, you seem great, but can you move? So that's not fair. We don't want you to do that. Sometimes we'll follow up if we find out that somebody is telling somebody else to move. There's lots of spaces out there. You can go look for other spaces, but please don't do that to another person. You wouldn't want that to happen to you, and we ask that you don't do that to others. So no, nobody can reject somebody else, even if they were in the other space first.
Thank you. All right, another honors question. Are the honors students guaranteed a place in honors hall?
They are not, because you could have students that are applying later. We do have many spaces in both honors and Lincoln, so it's very likely if that's where you want to go that you'll be able to get in, but I can't guarantee it. It all depends on the number of applicants, how many people are admitted into the honors college, how many of the students that are admitted in the honors college choose to live in one of those buildings. So can't guarantee it, but in many cases, if there are no other conditions, we're able to honor your request to get you in there.
And sticking with honors, if your student is still waiting on acceptance, should they go ahead and pick a room and then ask to be switched into an honors hall, or should they wait?
I would go ahead and pick a room. I always say that, go ahead and pick a room. And then because right now through the self-selection process, you can continue to look for spaces. If you do get admitted and change, even if you don't, you can still make that request to get on the wait list, and the spaces are available. The quicker you can get on that wait list too, the better chance you have to get what you're looking for.
Okay. Okay, so this is a Datasman question. Is there a layout about Datasman to see where the room numbers are located throughout? Someone was saying that the room numbers can be confusing there.
They can be confusing, even for me. No, we don't have any particular layouts, but you're right. I mean, Borman can be confusing in the numbering system because it has individual entryways, and Datisman can be confusing because you're walking down the hallway and you're in Center South, and then you take one step and now you're in 6th Main. I'm making that up, but it can be a little bit confusing. Ultimately, it's long, big hallways, all within the same building. The dimensions are out there, but no, there's no layout on the website that tells you exactly if your room is on the west side or east side of the building.
You. So if a student is a forensics major, where would most of their classes be located in their freshman year?
That depends on a lot of different things. So one, I would say if you're in forensics, I would very much encourage you to look at our forensics living learning community in Summit. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of STEM courses. So many of those are on the downtown campus, but it is also very likely that you're going to have classes on both campuses. Matter of fact, the crime scene houses are right outside my office here in the Evansdale neighborhood. So ultimately, you're going to be able to use those transportation options I mentioned before. So I wouldn't, you're not really going to know your schedule and exactly where you're going to be and when you're going to be for both semesters until you have that schedule. But ultimately, you can get to wherever you need to be very quickly.
Okay, so can my daughter bring her mountain bike to school, and where would she store it?
Most of our residence halls, or all of our residence halls, are close to bike racks. For example, there's one right outside my office window here. So you can, like, I would encourage you to bring a bike lock. It's not, mountain bike isn't something you typically keep in your room. Not really conducive for that, but we do have bike racks near all the residence halls so you can lock your bike up.
Okay, so my son is committed to WVU. He's hoping to select a roommate through social media. How does that work? And should he pick a spot now and add a roommate later?
Pick a spot now. Like I said, you can go in there and see that there's one spot remaining in a particular room. You can go in, most students complete a profile and reprofiles. The social media is still kind of a fishing pole throwing it out there. Doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily find best match. There's some tools already in the portal designed for that. So I would get into the portal right now. Also, the longer you wait, it's harder to get, especially if that other roommate has a space already. So I would say use the portal tools, get in there right now, see what's available. If you see something you like, grab it, and then take that time you can move around too and look at roommate profiles as you're navigating that process.
Okay, so next up, back to honors. If my daughter gets into the honors college, is it mandatory to live in the honors residence hall? What if they'd like to live somewhere else, like the Forensic Science LLC?
That is a great question. So if they're in forensics, they can live in the honors college, but it's tough to navigate into the living learning community for forensics. But if you get into the forensics living learning community, you're in Summit Hall, and then the honors college is right next door. So in honors hall, right next to Summit, and then you can utilize all those resources. So you can do both. You can live in Summit in the living learning community for forensics, but then utilize all the amazing resources associated with the honors college right next to Summit Hall.
So can you speak about the art space in the basement of Braxton Hall, and is that available to everyone?
It is. I think you're referring to the craft center. And that's just below my office now. And matter of fact, I was down there by the mail room for Towers down there earlier today, and there were lots of people coming in and out. There's all kinds of craft opportunities down there. It's a very fun space. So yes, it is open to students, and I would make use of that space. Why not try something new? The people are there because they like helping and serving students, and that's why it exists.
So will sleep-related disorders be considered if deciding on a single or a double room?
I would very much encourage you to register with the Office of Student Accommodation Services, because then they're going to look at that documentation and make, based on what they have and their expertise, if there's an appropriate accommodation. For example, should the student have a single? So we would take a look at that, but it's not the housing assignments team doing that. It's student accommodation services that are giving us their expert opinion in terms of what they need based on the documentation provided to them.
All right, the next question, we have this in here twice, is will this webinar be available and accessible? And the answer is yes. So after this, we are recording this, so sometime in the next week to 10 days, it will be available on the Mountaineer Parents Club website. You can view it again there. All right, Eric, let's talk about those micro fridges. Are the microwave fridge combos available for all the residence halls?
They are. It's probably the most popular optional service that we provide. The only space that you really don't need a micro fridge is Seneca Hall because there is a full kitchen. So there is a microwave and a full-size refrigerator. But in all other areas, I would encourage you to get a micro fridge. You can bring your own small mini fridge, but you can't bring your own microwave. So the most economical thing to do is to rent it. It's also an item that you don't typically bring with you somewhere else. It's also the biggest, bulkiest item that you put in your vehicle when you're getting ready to move in. And it's a cost that you can share with a roommate. So I would take a look at it. Always recommend having a micro fridge. You only need one per room. They only allow you to rent one per room, but it is definitely a nice resource to have. And I would suggest it in all halls with the exception of Seneca. And the only reason not in Seneca is because they already have those items in the room.
So what about kids bringing snakes or rats as pets? It happened to my daughter.
So we do not allow pets in the residence halls. That includes even fish in an aquarium. The only exception to that are service animals and more common emotional support animals. A student, in order to have an emotional support animal in the residence halls, you have to register with accommodation services, and then they would notify us, and then the student would have to agree to, there's a handler's agreement that outlines very clear expectations to minimize contact with other students in the residence halls. For example, there may be an allergy to pet dander. So it's very clear in terms of what the student has to do to make sure they're not impacting others.
Okay, next up, if you're on a wait list for a residence hall and decide to accept that spot, it will leave the roommate potentially that picked to live with you. And is that okay? My daughter doesn't know the person that chose to live with her and might want to move into another residence hall that she's on the wait list for.
Yeah, that is fine. I mean, students move all the time and make that request. I would still have open communication with the current roommate. You always get an automated email if you have a new roommate. It doesn't happen if you move out of a space, but I always suggest the real-time information related to your assignment and roommates and suite mates is in the housing portal on the application status page. So you can always go in there and see who your roommate is. And if anything changes, that's where I'd go to check that out. But yes, you can move around, communicate with the roommate, but no, you don't have to stay in a space if you're looking for something else.
So if you are in the Adventure LLC, do you need to participate in a certain amount of events?
They don't have a certain number of events. It is more thematic. That's a very engaging community. And for those of you, I would encourage everybody to go on a first year adventure trip, but no, there's no requirements after that. But if that's something you're interested in and you like doing, that team, part of my student life colleagues, are very engaged and want to make sure that you have a great experience at WVU and find other like-minded mountaineers to share that experience with you.
So there doesn't seem to be any rooms left in Honors Hall to choose from.
There were when I checked earlier today, so that could have something to do with profile. There will be some movement, so there should be some spots, but if for some reason you can't find what you're looking for, move forward with the self-selection process. Then you can go to that application status page and you'll see a blue button that says waitlist, and you can get on the wait list for that area.
And Eric, they have to be accepted into the Honors College. So
Correct.
So could that be a part of it?
That could be part of it, yes.
Okay, which residence halls are more convenient if you're enrolled in the School of Medicine?
I would say all of them, but if you're looking for closest proximity, then the Evansdale neighborhood, where I'm at right now, the Towers, Oakland would be the closest, or if you're in the Honors College, Lincoln Hall.
So how do you know when you're able to select? They've paid the fee but haven't completed a profile or the subsequent tasks yet.
That's a great question. So one, you get accepted, you apply, you get accepted to WVU, then you pay the academic deposit. Then normally within 24 hours, you're eligible to go into myhousing.wvu.edu, the housing portal, and you'll see the housing application in the top left-hand corner and start that process. It's a seamless process. You go through the whole thing, and self-selection is part of that application process. So if you've paid that fee and if you're referring to the academic deposit, you should be able to log on to the housing portal now. The only small delay that occurs is there's a daily process that updates that lets our housing portal know that you've paid the academic deposit and are now eligible to complete the housing application.
Okay, so what happens after February 28th? Does that mean you're unable to select a residence hall?
It means you're unable to self-select your space. We're still going to look at your preferences, and we look at building first. And if there's a spot there, we'll try to get you in there. If not, we try to look at profiles and other things that we have available to us. There's certain tools within the portal and find best fit. If that's not where you were hoping to go, you can still fill out that wait list request, and we'll manage that all the way through the end of June.
Thank you. So getting into a couple of these about where students live and what your major should be. So I'll let you address that. This one does say, am I correct that the business school's on the downtown campus? And yes, it is. But Eric, I know you have something that you usually say about living near your classes.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is there's some living learning community. So if that's available, like business that you mentioned, there is a living learning community on the 9th floor of Summit Hall. But no matter where you're at, you're going to have classes most likely in your first year on both campuses. So you're probably going to be utilizing transportation, either the PRT or the bus. So don't get so hyper focused on I am a biology major, as such I need to live in Borman Hall versus Braxton Tower. So ultimately you're going to be going across campus to all the different neighborhoods and utilizing those resources. And even if you're in engineering, you're still going to have classes downtown if you're taking certain math courses or other science-based courses. So don't let that overwhelm you too much. No matter where you're at, all of our halls serve first-time freshmen as well. And I should say that there's not a freshman area and a non-freshman area. Ultimately, we have first-time students in all three of our neighborhoods.
Thank you. It's important to remember that your student might think it'd be fun to roll out of bed and go to class, but there's a lot more to it, and they're outside of class more than they are in. So check out those amenities Eric mentioned. Here's one. Can you rent the microwave only, or is it a micro fridge combo deal?
Good question. It is a combo deal. So you'd have both. But once again, you can bring another mini fridge if you want, the big bulky item that you probably don't need, especially with the dining plan. So I would say get the micro fridge or get the combo first. If you need something like a extra space and a mini fridge, that's always something you can have delivered to your room later.
Okay, is there a chance a student could be placed on a campus they don't want?
Well, there's a chance that the spaces that you list are not available. So you could end up in the neighborhood that wasn't your first preference. So you can still get on that wait list and ask to move to a residence hall or a neighborhood that you're more interested in. And then even after you get here, I mean, this isn't ideal, but you're not completely locked in. We'll open up room changes a week or two into the semester as well. But yes, there is a chance that you list a couple preferences, they're not available, and you end up in a different residence hall or a different neighborhood. But you can still put in that wait list request.
What campus is the School of Music? Would be the Evansdale campus.
There is a Create floor here in Towers that I would encourage you to take a look at. The Creative Arts Center is closest. to the Evansdale neighbor. It's in on the Evansdale campus, so closest to our Evansdale neighborhood. But I would take a look at our what's called our Create Living Learning community.
So are bikes disallowed or just not recommended in rooms? They're expensive. So if a student can make it work in their space, is it allowed?
There's not, we very much discourage that because there's not a lot of room in a traditional residence hall space to support a bicycle. It's also something you don't want to push up and down the hallways or push against the walls in the residence halls. They could damage it. So we do ask that you lock it up. And we know that some people have expensive bikes. In that case, there are certain covers that you can buy for them and good locks. And they're outside the residence halls where we have cameras and staff members in those areas, so they should be safe.
My daughter's just gotten into a room at Seneca. Are there any limitations of what they can and cannot bring for the kitchen? For example, an air fryer.
We do not allow kitchen appliances in all halls but Seneca. Then we allow what's called typical kitchen appliances. An air fryer would fall into that category because there are kitchens, they're equipped to handle that. But we would ask that you don't bring air fryers in places like that or any other residence hall without a kitchen like Seneca.
Okay, how about do any halls allow freshmen to bring a car?
Great question. Should include that in the presentation. WVU does not prevent students from bringing a car, but housing and residence life does not offer parking. Having a car is a huge responsibility. So if you get a spot, you could go to transportation.wvu.edu and try to work with our transportation or parking services to secure a spot in a holding lot, often a place like the law school. So you could park up there, but you're probably going to be taking the bus to get to the law school and parking your car there, and you have to move it on home football games. And there are private options. But I wouldn't bring a car if you think it's one of those things you're going to be able to park outside the residence hall and then drive to class. Have all those great transportation options. There are students that do need to bring cars, but with buses, parents club buses helping you get home and people going to the same area, proximity to the Pittsburgh airport, I would say wait it out if you can that first semester and see if you truly need it. And then if you think you do, you can look to have one in the future.
So we're visiting campus tomorrow. Does the tour visit a residence hall? Which one? And any tips on other places to see?
Yes, the part of the tour, I think they go to Oakland Hall is one of the stops, and you can see the showroom there. If there's another hall that you want to look at, many of our residence halls do have a showroom. So if you go to the main desk, they'll try to be able to get you into that showroom so that you can take a look at it. But as part of the regular tour, Oakland is one of the big stops there. It was also one of our very popular residence halls.
When will the rates for rooms come out for the 25-26 school year?
Typically June. I know that's late, but that's when they get approved. So they should be fairly close to what they are now. That's why we have them in the portal. They could go up 3 or 4%. So I would anticipate an increase about that, but they don't officially get released until that Board of Governors meeting in June. And then we try to get those up on our website as soon as possible because assessment or student billing happens around the 4th of July.
Thank you. So my son has a medical condition that requires medications in a fridge. Can a room have 2 fridges? His meds take up a lot of space.
Yes, they can. So in that case, you could rent a micro fridge and then bring your own small mini fridge just for your medication if that's something you need. I would also encourage you, like I said before, register with accommodation services, student accommodation services.
Do all the residence halls have air conditioning?
Oh, great question. No, they don't. So the exception to that is Borman Hall, North and South, and Dadisman. Now I can say it's been a long time, been a few decades, but lived in those halls without air conditioning. For some people, that is an absolute and complete deal breaker. I get that. Allergies, asthma, other things may impact that. But in most cases, remember, you get here, move-in's going to start August 14th off the top of my head that Thursday. So you get here in August when it's hot. It can stay hot in September. but then it starts cooling down in September and October, and then you typically leave that first week of May. So many of the months that you are here are not months when you would use the air conditioning. In places like Borman or Dadisman with the windows, you can buy not expensive stuff, I would stay cheap, but a cheap box fan from Walmart and an oscillating fan for the desk, so the box fan for the window, oscillating fan for the desk. And once the building opens up and students are coming in and out, it stays fairly cool in the residence halls. But don't get me wrong, we could have a big heat wave in August and September. So for a couple months, it can be a little warm.
So, Eric, for the shared bathrooms in suite style rooms, do students supply their own paper products like toilet paper? And who is responsible for cleaning the bathrooms?
So the students are responsible for keeping the bathroom clean, but suites are typically cleaned by our in-house team about every 3 weeks. Do provide toilet paper and other items, but if you have a very specific preference for a type of Charmin, then we would encourage you to bring your own. But we do provide cleaning every 3 weeks as well as paper products in the bathrooms.
Do all the residence halls have fire sprinkler protection?
We do have sprinklers in all our residence halls and fire systems that obviously go off and notify residents, but also notify our emergency responders as well. So you'll find that the university police will get there quickly, along with the fire department, if those systems were to activate. Our fire control team does a very good job of assessing those systems, maintaining those systems, and making sure that they're keeping your students safe.
So, Eric, is move-in day staggered by residence hall or class rank?
We have and I don't believe this will change, a 3-day move-in process. In June, students will receive a message that we've opened up the time slot process, the move-in appointment process, so students can go in and select a specific move-in time, their designated time to move in. That ensures that all students and their families have equal opportunity to parking, to get as close to the building as possible, to elevators, stairwells, move-in carts, things of that nature, to make sure that it's an efficient process, considering that we're moving thousands of people in just a couple days. And we also get early arrival questions, unless you're on some sort of specific authorized event, and you typically receive that information from the sponsoring department. For example, there's some adventure trips that they call them drop and go, but you still get the same amount of time. That's another common question that we get. So if you're on an adventure trip that has an early arrival component, it is drop and go, but you still get that full time slot that other students get to be able to move in. You just have to, after you move in, get settled, then you're going to go to the rec center and get ready to take that trip.
Do all halls have a staffed front desk 24/7?
They do. All residence halls have a staffed main desk. Sometimes it's shared, for example, like Borman North and Borman South. Borman South doesn't have its own desk, but the Borman North desk is staffed 24/7.
And can you repeat which dorms do not have air conditioning?
Downtown neighborhood. So that would be Borman Hall, North and South, Dadisman Hall, and that's it.
Okay, are the residence halls and rooms card key accessed or regular keys?
Good question, they're mixed. So in towers, you still use your ID card to gain access to exterior doors and to activate the elevators and stairwells, but then you have a hard key to get into your room. There are other areas like honors that you just use your ID card to swipe to get into your room, and exterior doors, elevator, etc. So it is a mix depending on where you live. If you're going to have a hard key, Seneca, another great example, you use your ID card to get into the apartment, but then you have an individual bedroom key.
What is Morgantown City safety like?
We're very fortunate to live in a safe community. We also have a great relationship with the city of Morgantown. Both our university police department and Morgantown Police Department are very much community policing oriented. So we're very fortunate. Students feel very safe, sometimes a little too much walking in front of cars and not doing those things that they should be doing, or even in the residence halls. People get so comfortable. We still, if you're going to leave your room, want you to lock it behind you to minimize any potential crime of opportunity. But for the most part, we're very safe. Cameras across campus, as well as secure doors, controlled access in the residence halls. So we're very blessed to live in the community that we live in here.
Are there laundry facilities available in each hall?
Yes, another great question. There are. Every residence hall has laundry facilities. They vary a little bit. For example, in Towers, there's a couple on each floor. If you go into Datisman, there's one larger laundry room. Same with Honors or at Lincoln. So it depends on what the layout is, but every residence hall has access to laundry facilities. You can use the laundry app, the Speed Queen app, or you can put money on that directly, or you can use Mountie Bounty. You still have to use that app to activate it. So it's a student debit service, but we don't have coin operated machines. You have to use that app to activate washers and dryers, but a lot of cool features associated with that. You can see what's available. You can see when your laundry's done. And then of course you don't have to bring a big bag of quarters.
All right, Eric, can you talk a little bit about what is done to remediate mold in the vents or of any of the residence halls, and how often vent systems are flushed?
There are various preventative maintenance that happens with our facilities maintenance team. So they're constantly evaluating the residence halls and changing filters, cleaning areas that need to be cleaned. If there's ever any concern, we also have our environmental health and safety team. They're also monitoring those areas. If anyone has a concern and they submit a work request, then our environmental health and safety team would actually go in there and take a look at that. They typically do that with the student present. They'll call them, set up an appointment, go in there, evaluate the space, and send them a report if they have any concerns. But yes, a lot of preventative maintenance that's occurring, a lot of teams that are working together. And if there is any specific area of concern, we can follow up with the experts on campus.
When are the move-in dates?
August 14th, which is a Thursday, through Saturday, August 16th. Had to cheat.
That's okay. So do you pay the housing deposit first and then separately apply for the living learning community?
You do. It's all part of one seamless process. When you go to myhousing.wvu.edu, sign the terms and conditions. There's personal information that you include in there. You pay, the hardest step is paying that deposit, and then you roll right into self-selection. There are preferences before that, but you'll put down living learning community preferences as well as room preferences. And then through February 28th at 4:45 p.m., you'll navigate to that self-selection process.
Okay, so how do students access buildings? Are they checked to make sure they belong there, or are they visiting someone who lives there and not just wandering the halls?
So we do have controlled access. So for example, here at Towers, the residence halls do start checking IDs at 9 p.m. But throughout the day, you still have to use your ID card to swipe, to activate, to call the elevator, or to get into a stairwell to get into student rooms. But our residence halls do start checking IDs at 9 p.m. and having students swipe in, and they would have to register guests there as well if they want to bring a guest into a residence hall after that time.
So do athletes have any specific residence halls?
Many of our,
Specifically?
yeah, I see they mentioned wrestling there. Many or most of our athletes do live in Oakland Hall. We work very closely with the compliance office with athletics, and they work directly with the coaches, but they notify the housing assignments team if a student needs to go into a designated athlete space, and they let us know who the roommate should be as well. So you'll still get your assignment. You can still go through the self-selection process, but we'll probably get something soon for different athletes who they want their roommate pairings to be with, and then we process those manually in the housing assignments office.
Okay. What's the housing policy for gun ownership and or weapons?
I would encourage you to go to our campus carry website. We could probably put that here in the chat. So there are very specific rooms about campus carry, and if a student may have a concealed weapon and then lockers for those weapons. So it goes through that registration process. There's a great frequently asked questions there as well. So, and it's listed there. Thank you, tech support.
Tech support's coming through for us in the chat. If y'all need anything, keep an eye out. We have great tech support on this. Okay, engineering majors and band kids, do they choose specific halls?
They're not restricted to any particular hall, but engineering does have a living learning community, and Create is very popular. The Creative Arts Center is very popular for students that participate in the marching band or members of the marching band.
Okay, which neighborhoods are closest to the business school?
Well, Reynolds Hall is on the downtown campus, so it's close to the Sunnyside and downtown neighborhood, but doesn't mean that you're not going to have classes in all of our neighborhoods on both campuses, Evansdale and downtown. So there's not one particular area where all your classes are going to be.
Are education classes still a bit further from the main area? They are on the Evansdale campus. I think that's what you. Yeah.
If I'm stating that correctly, that sounds right. So a specific education class, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to have English in another location.
Okay, when is new student orientation and what other dates do new students need to know?
New student orientation is in the month of June. So, and that information is getting to roll out in the not too distant future. We had a conversation about that today. So that's kind of after the housing step, the next kind of big step in the process of becoming a Mountaineer. So you will get more information about new student orientation soon, but most of those dates are in June. There are a couple dates in July as well, July 7th and 11th off the top of my head.
So students, accepted or admitted students did receive an email about saving the date for orientation. The date to register for orientation will open up in March. And one more time, let me just encourage you to join the Mountaineer Parents Club. You'll get our emails twice a month, and we will have a lot of this information in there, just reminding families of upcoming events and dates. And encourage your student to check their WVU Mix email because that has great information in it as well. Sometimes students don't check right now because they're very busy being high school seniors, and we totally understand that. But encourage them to check it occasionally right now so they can keep up with that. Next question is back to campus carry. Did you say that students can have guns on campus if they're registered?
There is a process for that, and that's why I want to refer you to that webpage because it outlines, and there is on our website as well in terms of registering. But you have to have that permit, and it goes through that registration process and what those next steps are.
And keep in mind that in most cases, someone has to be 21 to have a permit in this state. So there's a lot involved. Please check that website. And it explains everything. Okay, is orientation in person?
Yes, it is. And it's something that we want all students to participate in. And it will really help both the student and the parents orientate themselves to WVU and really kind of that first step in the kickoff process of becoming a Mountaineer.
Absolutely. There will be an online portion that your student will have to go through to schedule their classes, but that is separate from the on-campus. Oh, do parents get discounted football tickets? Well, in a way, there is at least one game that athletics will give us a discount through the Mountaineer Parents Club that we'll pass on to parents. But for season tickets or most games, sadly, no, they do not offer us that opportunity. Okay, so what if your student is on their freshman adventure trip during orientation? Can we change the date from what we're assigned? Actually, we don't assign orientation dates to students. your student will sign up for the one that best fits. We do have a few dates that partner up with the Adventure West Virginia trips. So you can find those on their website and check that out and match up one of those. Sorry, Eric, I jumped in there.
No, that's perfect.
Okay. The dates for orientation again.
Through the month of June, there are a couple days that they don't have it in June. And then there's a couple dates in July as well.
Thank
So
you.
7th and 11th of July, I believe.
Yep. There are lots of dates to pick from. So students will get to choose the one that best fits your family schedule. Is going to an earlier orientation preferred to get the classes you want? Those two things are not connected. Scheduling classes is done separately than the in-person orientation. So they do not, you don't have to come to an early one just to get classes. It's going to be done as separate entities. Let's see, do students still have access to home football games with their tuition dollars?
There is a student ticketing process, yes. So, and that's something that'll be shared out more broadly. Another club that you might want to get involved in is the Mountaineer Maniacs. But if I understand that correctly, yes, there is a student ticketing process, a way to request that ticket. You know, requesting tickets to multiple events can give you certain priorities as you're navigating that process. But more information will come out about that and be shared directly with students.
But they do get in free. They just have to go through the process. Sorry. We have two more sort of questions about orientation here and travel conflict and attending. So it is mandatory that a student comes to an in-person orientation. But again, there are dates in June and July to pick from. If you have some sort of conflict that your student would be unable to do anything in June or July, you can contact the Office of Orientation and they can help you work out any of those situations. All right. Is there parking for a student who wants to bring a car just to get home, back and forth?
Would have to work either to secure a private spot or work with transportation.wvu.edu. So the parking service is to get a parking permit. If they want to bring their car, if it's short term, there are some short term lots available in Morgantown. But yeah, I as I mentioned before, I wouldn't bring a car unless you're not prohibited from bringing a car, but unless you really need it, I'd say, especially in that first semester, it is a big burden.
It is, and just also to add in, the lots that are available are like storage lots that a student can just park there. They're not monitored lots. They're not watched by security or anything like that. So it's a big decision to bring a car on campus. Eric, will someone know if their roommate has a concealed carry or a campus carry permit? And what happens if they don't want to live with someone?
You can be shared directly with the student. Now, they aren't in student rooms. We do have lockers that are set up for students that have registered and navigated those processes, but shouldn't be in the student room with the student. But I would definitely recommend that if there are specific questions to direct those to safety@mail.wvu.edu.
Is admission to all sporting events free as long as students go through the ticketing process?
Yes.
It's a great perk. Oh, it looks like that's the end of our questions right now. So we'll give you all a minute. If there's any last minute questions you'd like to throw in, we'll give you all a second to do that. And again, this will be available on the Mountaineer Parents Club website. Give us about a week to 10 days to get it all together. Our tech support will make it pretty, and maybe any times that I've kind of hesitated or flubbed up, she'll fix that for me. So, but we'll put that up on the website. is there public transportation that can bring a student to Harper's Ferry or to Ransom? Right now, the public transportation here, we have some buses that go to varying areas, not necessarily through a lot of different places in West Virginia. So we go to Pittsburgh Airport, and there is a bus that goes to some southern places in West Virginia, Charleston area, and that's about it. But you can visit the transportation website, give you a little bit more information about what's in this area and available to families. All right, let's see. If you select a living learning community, when selecting the location, do you need to state the building, or do you just put in other residences in case you don't get into the LLC?
In some cases, especially those that are major based, if you're in forensics, if you're in business, if you're in engineering, you have a profile on your account based on your major, and you can go to those and self-select them until the end of self-selection. There are a handful of places where there might be another application process associated with that, so you can still navigate the self-selection process, but also check out the website to see if there might be a supplemental application and fill that out as soon as possible. And then we would work through our manual assignments process for that.
Okay, well, that looks like it's our last question. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And special thanks to Eric for answering all the questions, and he's a wonderful colleague. We love working with him. So we appreciate his time, and we appreciate all of you for joining us. So if you have any questions, reach out to the Mountaineer Parents Club. We are happy to answer them for you. And if you're interested, we have more webinars coming up. So check that out as well. We'll be sure to put those on Facebook and on our website. So we hope to see you all again. Thank you very much. Good night.